our goal here was to create what we believe is the first RPG where the mage is a total badass, okay? And one of the ways that we started approaching this is we looked at what a lot of games have implemented and the sort of constraints they place on mages to make them equal to other classes that they put in the game, and we eliminated those. So we took away things like mana bars and cooldowns. And what's really interesting about that is when we tell people that, they usually come back and say, well, doesn't that mean the game's going to be trivial? Because you can just cast as much magic as you want to, right? You're not limited. But the game is actually very, very challenging, and I think Josh will give you an idea of how challenging it can be.
Yeah, so as the producer on the game, obviously I play it quite a bit, and I practiced before PAX to get ready, and I came in feeling kind of confident, and I said to myself that I didn't want to die a single time at PAX. We're doing about 60 demos for, crowds of 20 folks, and I felt like I'd be embarrassed if I ever died once. And then on Friday, over the course of the day, I died 24 times. So that gives you some sense of this is not an easy game by any stretch. It's not impossible, it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely a challenge, and you need to learn the skills to play it properly.
So another thing that we did is, we took a look at how we've been conditioned to play mages in games over the years, and we have terms like glass cannon and squishy, right? Which mean I can deal out a lot of damage, but I can never stand toe-to-toe with an enemy. I need to run away from them. I need to kite, things like that. And we wanted to eliminate that, so we decided to focus on a couple of defensive abilities, and we weaponize them. So your block, as an example, which is on the right mouse button, when you block, you ignore half of all damage. However, if you time your block perfectly, then you're not only invulnerable to all damage for that brief window, but if you're hit by an enemy like this, you will detonate whatever spell that you have equipped. So you can actually turn your defensive block into an offensive weapon, and it's really visceral feeling. Then the other defensive ability is your magical dodge or a blink, and when you do that, you have a short teleport, and wherever you land, you're again going to detonate whatever spell you have equipped. So now instead of running away from your enemies constantly, you can dodge into your enemies and then block them and just really fight toe-to-toe, and it's very, very visceral.
We've got some pretty awesome voice talent in the game. Our female hero is voiced by Jennifer Hale, and Troy Baker does the male hero. And we've also got Gina Torres and Clancy Brown doing voice work for us, so really incredible cast of characters in the game.
Now this area right here is something kind of neat. We call these loot machines right now, and these are challenges that are sprinkled all through the game, and they all work differently. This particular one, when you hit it with a spell, it starts an event, and it starts spawning waves of enemies, in this case 4 waves. And every time you kill an enemy, if they drop loot, you'll notice the loot doesn't actually go to the player. It goes up into the machine instead. And as more loot is added to the machine, the loot that's in there will promote to a better and better quality. And you can get to the point where, like in this case right now, there's a legendary in there. However, you can't get any of that loot unless you beat the entire encounter. And if you die at any point, you lose all the loot that's there, and you got to come back in and try it again. And these are optional areas. They're designed to be very challenging, but very rewarding if the player can accomplish them. As you can see, Josh is on his last leg here. He's got his last shield pip up. He took a lot of damage because this mini-boss right here in the last wave, she's a Banshee. She does a scream that'll stun you, and if she stuns you right in the middle of enemies, it can go pretty poorly, right? When she's by herself, when you get to the end, she's not so bad. That's correct. There's no mana. There's no mana. There's no, we have a couple of systems like your blink is something you can't spam it. You can't just use it over and over again. But there are no cooldowns or anything that interrupts a player for more than 2 or 3 seconds. So now that Josh has completed that room, he's got a ton of loot, right, from that loot machine. So he's going to go ahead and craft a little bit and explain how that works.
Yeah, so I'm about to make my way into a boss battle here, and for that I'm going to need some better spells. All the loot in the game is focused on being able to craft yourself new magical spells. And so for a quick demonstration, I'm going to craft some new fire spells to fight the boss with. So I choose my fire sigil, and my strategy is going to be to apply a debuff to him using a mastery focused spell. So I'm building a targeted spell, and I'm going to augment it with mastery. And when I craft that and equip it, that goes into my arsenal. Then I'm going to craft a barrier spell, and I'm going to use that for damage. I've got a lot of choices here. I like this one, and I'm going to add destruction to this. So the basic idea is light him on fire and get him burning with this mastery debuff, and then follow up with my barrier spell, which I can cast by either blinking or blocking, and that's going to do bonus damage against him. While I'm in here, I'll do an AoE as well, just to round out the arsenal. And more destruction, because destruction helps. So now I've equipped all my new spells. I've got my old spells sitting in my inventory, and they're not useful to me anymore. So I'm going to go into our synthesis screen, where you can synthesize any of the loot or spells in the game into different stuff. So I've got 3 fire spells here. If I synthesize it, it actually upgrades my entire fire sigil. So now I've got a better global chance of getting crits when I cast any fire spell. And of course, throughout the game, you can continue to upgrade your fire sigil. So if you say, I'm a fire mage, you can do that, and you can really focus all your efforts on building up your fire and coming up with different strategies for how to cast fire effectively.
So one of the things we did here too on our boss is, you know, if you've ever played a mage in a game and you decided to maybe take a different route and you said, I'm going to make a mind control mage, right? It's all about manipulating my enemies. Then you get to the boss and find out all your spells are useless because none of them will work on the boss, right? Well, we don't do that. We let everything work on the boss, including crowd control and everything else. But what we do is when a boss becomes crowd control, they don't like it. So we have an enrage mechanic that the more you crowd control them, the more enraged they get. And if they go full on enrage, they go crazy. They're immune to crowd control for the period of enrage. They attack harder, they attack faster, they become very, very violent. And you can't crowd control them during that period of time. And that'll eventually wear off, but you can do it again. So here he's enraged right now because he was frozen too much. And if he hits, now what's interesting is even though he's enraged, you can still fight him toe to toe. But it's much harder, right? Because if you miss, you can't afford the mistakes. But yeah, that's a big attack there. So so for example, if you had a mind control spell and the boss summoned a bunch of ads, one of the strategies could be to mind control the boss. He'll kill all the ads, and then you go back to fighting the boss. But now you got to fight him enraged, right? So we really wanted to make it where the players could decide on the playstyle they want, right? If you want to stand back and be a nuker, then you can do that. And you can crowd control the boss, stand back and hit him as hard as you can with powerful spells. If you want to fight him toe to toe and never leave, that's what I like to do. I like to stand my ground and make the enemies move around. You can do that too. You just craft your spells the way you want to do it and learn how to use those tools. So if you notice that Josh, he'll hit him with this charged up targeted fire spell, and the standard blink explosion was 98 damage, but when he charges up the targeted fire spell and blinks, it's doing 168 damage. So by lighting him on fire and then blinking into him, he's getting a bonus on that. So the game is going to be available on August 26th on Steam. We're in early access right now. And Josh, why don't you tell us about the milestones we have coming up?
Yeah, so the game's available to purchase via early access on Steam right now for $20. In just a couple of weeks on April 28th, we're doing our first big early access update that has changes to a lot of the mechanics, some fundamental rebalancing of Magic. That's all based on community feedback. About 6 weeks after that, we go into alpha, and then from there, you get access to more content, but the price goes up incrementally until when it releases in August, it's going to be $40. So you decide whether you want to buy in now and help us build the game or wait until it's a little more finished and polished.